Wildfires usually occur in summer and fall when conditions are typically hot and dry. But as we can see from the recent LA fires, wildfires are becoming more frequent and intense, occurring even in winter seasons and causing significant physical and economic damage. So why is this happening now? And how can we address this growing crisis? Let's find out. Welcome to the Sustainability Nugget podcast. I am Rarisu Maraibi.
And I'm Tosin Folorunsho.
On this podcast, we learn about sustainability by discussing various related topics while focusing on three pillars: the economy, the society, and the environment. So let's start with the current event. Southern California is currently in the middle of one of its worst wildfire seasons ever. As of today, January 13, this wildfire has taken up to 24 lives. Over 12,000 structures have been destroyed and nearly 180,000 people have been evacuated. Economically, we're talking about up to $150 billion of destruction. That's massive. On top of that, you've got this crazy Santa Ana winds gusting up to 100 miles per hour and years of drought making everything a tinderbox. Fires like the Palisades Fire and Eaton Fire has ripped through communities, leaving destruction in their wake. It's not just bad, it is catastrophic. So how exactly does a wildfire start, or what causes wildfires? To start a fire, you need a spark and a fuel. So the fuels for wildfires are usually dried out vegetation in the forest. And in places where there have been drought like California and the vegetations dry up, making it a good fuel for a fire, just waiting for a spark to start a fire. So for the spark, human activities are usually the major cause of starting this fire, like even as little as discarding a cigarette, unattended campfire, or maybe sparks from power lines can actually just start a spark, and this dry fuel can lit it up into a fire. But there are natural causes like maybe lightning, sparks from lightning, but that's less common. And so how does climate change play a role in this? With climate change, we have rising global temperatures that are making summers longer because everywhere is hot, making the drought worse. So it's actually helping to dry out these vegetations even more, making it a ready fuel for any spark that comes along. And also with climate change, it's shifting weather patterns. So places that usually had maybe mild fire seasons are now seeing more intense fire seasons, and that's why it's even going beyond this season of usually summer, fall, and even entering winter. So some people are now even calling it fire year rather than fire season, because you're having wildfires outside of this so-called wildfire season. Why does this spread? It spreads because of this wind. So like for example, in California, the Santa Ana winds are notorious for spreading wildfires. These winds are dry, powerful, and fast, and once a fire starts, this wind can push it across the landscape at alarming speed, making it harder to control and more destructive. So even a small spark can turn into a raging inferno when these winds are in play. So if the fuel is there, if it's abundant, and there's a spark and the fire starts, then this wind spreads its across. And that's what we're seeing in the LA wildfires. It's spreading really fast. People that had never really experienced wildfire in their community are seeing it now, and like houses have been burnt to the ground. So now that we know how wildfires are started, how they spread, how can we control it? We're going to be talking about how we can adapt, because with climate change, things are getting worse. So how can we be better prepared and adapt? But how can we prevent it also in the future? So let's start with adaptation. Number one, we should make communities more fire resilient. So this means like using more resilient building materials, creating buffer zones, and creating better evacuation plans, right? So for like more fire resilient materials, for example, concrete, cement, rather than wood, although this is more expensive, but cheaper alternatives, or even if it's not cheaper, just alternative to building materials that are currently being used. Research should be done to use more resilient materials in building houses, especially in areas where it is prone to wildfires. In this current LA fire situation, there are some houses that burned down, but like structures within the house didn't burn down, but that's because the structure was made of concrete rather than wood. So I think places prone to wildfire should really look into the materials they use in building their houses. Next, investment should be made into early warning systems. We'll be using AI, satellite to be able to see when, as soon as a fire starts, so that response can be administered immediately to contain it and prevent it from spreading into communities where people are living. Because I believe that if you can just catch the fire as soon as it starts, then there's a better chance of actually putting it off. So investment should be made into better early warning systems. Third, the firefighting infrastructure needs to be updated. Like in the news of hydrants not having water, that's really unacceptable if that's really true, because that's just like the very basic thing. So all of the firefighting infrastructure should be updated, basic water available, but even more trucks, helicopters, jets, firefighting jets. All of this need to be ready in order to be able to fight these fires when they come. So from, like I said, to adapt, from making communities more fire resilient, early warning signs, investing in early warning signs, and investing in firefighting infrastructures. So how can we prevent wildfires? So to prevent these wildfires, first off, we have to look at, like I said, you need a spark and you need a fuel for these fires to start and grow. So first off, from the fuel, we should manage our forests better. So if they are like dead vegetation lying on the ground, like investment should be made in actually managing this forest, clearing out this dried out vegetation to prevent this fuel from being there whenever a spark comes. Secondly, we should address the spark. So people should be more conscious of like throwing out a flame, even cigarette and all. They should probably quench it or whatever before they throw it out. Campfires, don't leave fires unattended. But even to like power stations that maybe like sparks that can come from power lines, the power companies should be more deliberate in like burying their lines and investing in shut-off systems so that to reduce the amount of spark maybe during high peak period. And of course, lastly, we need to fight climate change, because climate change is being driven by increase in greenhouse gas emissions in the atmosphere. We need to curb it from the source in order to help reduce the rising global temperatures that are leading to these hotter seasons, drier seasons, that are making more fuel for disasters like wildfires. Anyways, that's all for now. I hope you learned something. I want to learn from you. What do you think can be done about disasters like wildfires? We saw the hurricane the other day, which was also very intense. I lived in Tampa for 5 years, never experienced the hurricane in my area, but like last year it literally was in front of my university. So we literally are seeing the impact of climate change. It's not far away anymore. It's with us. We're literally seeing things that were not there years ago being there. Even insurance companies that have experts that assess this risk, they can now see that risk that they thought that was once in 100 years is now like once in 10 years or once in 5 years, and they're like removing coverage from things like damages from fires or hurricanes because they know what's happening. So the people at the top, the people that's meant to be protecting us, already knows what's happening. So we should really be out of the point of arguing whether climate change is real. The effect is already with us. It's no longer far away. So what can we actually do? How can we go forward as a community? Please, I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comment section. And yeah, until next time, continue to live consciously, and I'll see you in my next episode. Bye. Thanks so much for listening to the Sustainability Nuggets podcast. I am Rarsu Maribi.
And I am Tosin Folorunsho. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave a rating and review on wherever you listen to your podcast.
You can also show your support by signing up for a small donation to help sustain future episodes. You can find all relevant links in the description. See you in our next episode.